How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather Sponge 5000, and in this video we're going to talk more about this next major winter storm that's expected to impact portions of the Midwest as well as the Northeast by the time we approach a Monday to Tuesday timeframe. So first, let's take a look at the GFS model, and right now we are seeing snow showers right over Colorado and extending into northern New Mexico, where in those areas you should expect right around 3 to 6 inches of snowfall. I wouldn't rule out the possibility of maybe experiencing a little bit more than that, especially if you're very high up in the mountains, where of course you're bound to experience more convective activity. So definitely watch out for that if you're in the higher elevations. And if you're into skiing, then of course this week would be a fairly good week to go skiing, as there's going to be plenty of snow here right over the mountains of New Mexico as well as Colorado. And continuing to move forward with the forecast, the snow is going to stay around for quite some time since temperatures will remain cold right over New Mexico and Colorado. But moving forward with the forecast, we've been talking about this over the past few days, and at this point the certainty is almost as high as you can ask for. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there could be some pretty significant changes for certain areas. And what I'm exactly talking about is the areas that will be close to the rain snow line, because even any small differences with the forecast could make a big difference in terms of how much snowfall you actually receive. So taking a look at the latest run of the GFS model, it's very similar to what we were seeing yesterday, but we're seeing the snowfall a little bit heavier than anticipated right over Oklahoma and Texas. So in those areas you could maybe see a little bit more snowfall than initially anticipated, because before the area of snowfall was a little bit more narrow right over Oklahoma and the panhandle of Texas, but now it seems a little bit more widespread and it seems a little bit more heavy as well. So you could maybe see 3 to 6 inches of snowfall rather than 1 to 3 inches. And if we were to take a look at the latest snowfall forecast from the GFS model, assuming 1 inch of rain equates to 10 inches of snowfall, we see that the GFS model is quite aggressive, but take this with a huge grain of salt. It's highly unlikely that you're going to see 26 inches of snowfall right over Oklahoma. That's definitely an exaggeration on the GFS's model's portion, because it's unlikely that we're going to see a ratio where 1 inch of rainfall would equate to 10 inches of snow, because with this storm system there won't be that much cold air to a point where there won't be that much cold air to a point where the moisture content in each snowflake will be limited. So that would mean that you're definitely going to need more precipitable rainfall to create more snowfall accumulation right up on the surface. So taking a look at this snowfall forecast, which is a little bit closer, it is a little bit more accurate. We do see it's definitely less, but I'd expect even less snowfall than this right over Oklahoma. Expect maybe around 6 to 8 inches of snowfall in certain areas, and 3 to 6 for the most part throughout Oklahoma and the panhandle of Texas, which still could be very significant. You definitely need to keep that in mind. And the snowfall should pretty much last all day on Sunday and going into Monday morning as well. So definitely watch out for that right over Oklahoma City and Texas, where you could experience anywhere between 3 to 6 to 6 to 8 inches of snowfall here. And then going back to the radar from the GFS model, you're going to see again a very similar forecast to what we were seeing yesterday. Not much uncertainty. And for a place like St. Louis, there was a big question whether or not it's going to be a rain or snow event, but it's most likely at this point you're going to at least see some snowfall out of this. I don't expect much snowfall, maybe around an inch or two right over St. Louis, but in other portions of Missouri, such as the areas a little bit further north and westward, that's where you could expect a little bit more snowfall accumulation, but not much, because like I said, this area of snowfall in the Midwest will be very narrow. But moving on to the more long-term future, by the time this approaches the Northeast, we see that this storm system not only intensifies, but so does the area of snowfall, where the area of snowfall definitely expands quite a bit. and this is expected to be a major winter storm for the Northeast, as it's guaranteed to happen at this point, where southern New England will likely experience 6 to 12 inches of snowfall, or something that's around that range. And for places like northern Pennsylvania and southern upstate New York, you should expect very similar snowfall amounts, as I'm very confident with that idea at this point. As again, I don't if you're very far from the rain snow line and mostly deep in the snowfall, you shouldn't really worry about that much uncertainty with the forecast. It likely will be in the range of 6 to 10 inches of snowfall. The areas where it's a little bit more uncertain, it's closer to rain snow line, like a city like New York City, where the forecast does become more uncertain. So right now, the GFS model is, of course, taking a more aggressive approach when it comes to snowfall right over New York City, taking more than 3 inches of snowfall. However, the current consensus is that New York City should right now expect maybe around 1 to 3 inches of snowfall, but it really could go either way, because if we were to see the storm system, let's say, move only 20 miles to the south, that could mean the difference between seeing 1 to 3 inches of snowfall in New York City, or potentially 6 to 10 inches of snowfall. So there's definitely a pretty wide margin of error right over New York City, and I'll say the same for northern New Jersey and pretty much the Interstate 95 corridor area that's just north of the New Jersey-Delaware border. That's where the forecast does become a little bit more uncertain. But north of New York City, I'll say pretty much just north of the Interstate 80 corridor, that's when the forecast is a little bit more certain that you're going to see a major snow event out of this. So we're definitely going to need to pay close attention to how the ridging builds over the next 24 to 48 hours to really get the precise location of where this low pressure system will be, because I'll determine how much snowfall you will receive in the bigger cities. And same goes for Long Island. You guys, it's going to be a little bit more of an uncertain forecast for Long Island as well. And depending on how long you're going to stay in the rain, that'll determine how much snowfall you'll receive. Now, taking a look at the GFS models forecasts with the Crucera forecast, which is a little bit more accurate in this scenario. So if we were to take a look at that, we do see the GFS model is forecasting a very large area of 6 to 12 inches of snowfall, pretty much the entirety of southern New England. So places like Hartford, Rhode Island, Boston, expect a major snow event out of this. But New York City and Long Island, we clearly see it's fairly uncertain, because you're right in between the border of receiving no snow accumulation to maybe over 6 inches of snow. And same goes for northeastern New Jersey. Northwestern New Jersey, it's a bit more uncertain. It will be a significant snow event for you guys. And in Philadelphia as well, it's going to be uncertain if you're going to receive any sort of snowfall accumulation. So be aware of that. For places south of that, like Baltimore and Washington, D.C., it's highly unlikely you're going to experience any accumulating snowfall, as it seems like the cold air just isn't far enough south in this scenario. And then for northern Pennsylvania and southern upstate New York, you should again expect 6 to 12 inches of snowfall. And I wouldn't be surprised in the more localized areas you could maybe receive over a foot. So definitely prepare for that all throughout these areas. And then for the rest of the Midwest, this area you should expect anywhere between around 3 to 6 inches of snowfall for the most part. The GFS model is a little bit exaggerated in this specific area, but it still should be a decent snow event for you guys. So you definitely at least want to be aware of that. Now, take a look at the European model snowfall forecast. While the European model is also taking a scenario that's right around the ballpark with what the GFS model is stating, the European model is does definitely show some differences. So if we were to take a look at the total snowfall accumulation forecast from the European model, it's fairly similar for the most part when it comes to snowfall accumulation. The heaviest snowfall is a little bit further northward, and it's expecting the snowfall to potentially be a little bit heavier towards southern New England, where you could maybe see over a foot of snow in a scenario like this. I don't think it's going to get that high, but it's very well possible it could come close to that amount, maybe around 10 inches of snowfall right over Boston. So you definitely at least want to be aware of this. The forecast is very certain. You need to prepare now in a lot of these areas. But if you're close to a rain snow line, definitely stay tuned till the very last second, because it's going to be very close when it comes to how much snowfall you're going to receive. So here's a more accurate representation of the amount of snowfall you should expect in the Northeast. So in Boston, you should expect anywhere between 6 to 10 inches of snowfall. Same goes for Hartford, Rhode Island, and going into southern upstate New York, into northwestern New Jersey as well. And the Pocono Mountain region of Pennsylvania should expect right around 6 to 10 inches of snowfall. For places like northeastern New Jersey, going into New York City, you should expect maybe around 3 to 6 inches of snowfall. In New York City, I'll expect a little bit closer to the 1 to 3 range, and same goes for Long Island. But again, very close forecast, so don't be surprised if you maybe see more than the 1 to 3 inches of snowfall, or maybe even less, because remember, the forecast area is going to be very narrow right over New York City, to the point where just a shift 20 miles to the north could mean mostly a rain event for New York City. So there's still that possibility that maybe you don't experience accumulating snowfall. It's still most likely that you will experience accumulating snowfall, but we can't rule out that possibility that maybe there might not be snowfall accumulation in New York City. And Philadelphia, going to be a very close forecast once again, maybe around an inch of snow, but it's equally as likely that you won't experience any snow out of this. So this should happen, by the way, right between the Monday night into the Tuesday timeframe. So you definitely want to be aware of that throughout the Northeast for potentially your Tuesday morning commute or your Monday evening commute, as the conditions should quickly worsen right around that time period. So taking a look at the Futurecast radar to show you guys when you should experience impacts in each area of the United States. So by Sunday morning, the snowfall should be right over the Texas Panhandle, where you should experience moderate to heavy amount of snow going into 1 p.m. We see that it will continue to move further westward, and then by Sunday night, we should see that the snow will just be outside of Dallas. It doesn't seem like it's going to move far south enough to reach Dallas, but in this area, you definitely need to watch out for moderate amount of snowfall. Then going into Monday morning, the snowfall should move right over Oklahoma City, where you should expect anywhere from 3 to 6 inches of snowfall to potentially maybe a little bit more than 6 inches of snowfall right over Oklahoma City, as it should end right around the Monday at noon time. And then by the time we approach Monday afternoon, the snowfall should move into northern Arkansas and southern Missouri at that time, and it should begin right around Monday morning. And then going into Monday night, it's going to be very close forecast for St. Louis, because it's still uncertain if you're going to experience any sort of snowfall or not. You might just be a little bit too far south. But going into Monday night, we do see the snowfall will eventually move into southern Indiana and Illinois before we eventually enter the Tuesday overnight hours, where that's when the snow should begin in northern New Jersey, northern Pennsylvania, as right around the 4 a.m. time frame. That's when the snowfall really should begin, and then by 7 a.m. it should pretty much swallow up entirely the of southern New England, upstate New York, as well as New Jersey and New York City by this point. Now, how about after this snowstorm that's expected to impact Northeast on Tuesday? What will happen after that? Well, we clearly see that temperatures will drop for the most part throughout the northern Midwest as well as the Northeast, which could certainly raise the possibility of another snowstorm moving through, because as you probably could tell in the Northeast and portions of the Midwest as well, it's been a lot warmer than average, which is the reason why we haven't really received any snowfall in some of these areas in over a month. But now we're expected to see temperatures below average for this time of the year, where in my area, more specifically in northern New Jersey, the high temperature should hover around freezing, which is around 10 degrees below average, and it's thanks in part due to this snowstorm that is going to move through on Monday, because it's going to bring a strong northerly flow that's certainly going to bring that cooler air further southward and keep the temperatures below average right over the Northeast as well as the Midwest. But we do see, due to this dip in the jet stream, there's easily a possibility that a lot more troughs will be moving along this jet stream and bringing the possibility of snowfall. We could maybe see that as early as Friday, where we do see a small clipper system moving through, bringing some isolated snow showers right over the northeast. We're definitely going to need to see how this unfolds over the next few days. This isn't going to bring much snowfall based on what we're seeing right now, but it's still at least something to be aware of, especially if it does intensify. And there's maybe that possibility of a nor'easter by the time we approach next weekend. We do see a pretty well-defined low pressure system right over the southeast, and if we do see enough of a southerly flow that would push this to the northeast, then that possibility certainly does exist. Right now, the European model doesn't expect that to happen, but it's at least something to be aware about. But in the long-term future, it does expect some sort of nor'easter to develop by the time we approach early next week. So there's still a lot of time to really get this forecast, more confident when it comes to this scenario. So I'll certainly keep you guys updated if we do see any major changes when it comes to confidence of these forecasts. But I'll say more likely than not, the snowfall chance over the Midwest and Northeast, including the coastal Northeast, will be a lot higher for during the mid to late part of February, thanks to the cooler than average temperatures. But that's it for now, guys, and I thank you guys for watching.